Hi everyone, John Osmond here again, and this is my second of my video series on how I set up a project and how I go through creating a database application. And also a little later I'm going to teach you about the MVVM pattern, so I'm looking forward to that. And so in this video we're going to just talk about at the very beginning of the project what I do. Let me get myself out of the way there. One of the first things I do is I have this Access application template here on my hard drive with the 9 folders that I usually start with. And on my drive itself, I always have an applications folder, and then I have an application designs folder. And inside of that, I make a folder that is the name of the project. In this case, I'm going to call it demo project. So you can see I have one here in applications and one here in applications designs. So the one that's in applications is going to be deliverable software. It's going to be the final product that goes out to the customer. But we start here in applications designs, and you can see I called this one demo project. I could certainly make more. I could have as many projects in here as I needed. So I'm just going to start with this one. And as you can see, I copied over the stuff from the template. So I don't need the template anymore. I could just work out of this. And the next thing I do once I get the files in place is I go ahead and I jump over to SQL Server and I start creating databases. Now, every project is going to have 3 databases mainly: a production database, a development database, and a staging database, just like you saw here in my diagram. However, because I'm doing this demonstration on one machine, you see all 3 of them in the same spot, whereas if I were doing this in someone's network environment, this one would be on the development machine, which is a Windows desktop. These 2 would be on a Windows server running SQL Server. Okay, and then as you can see, I have a 4th table, which also would be a server table. It's called application tables. It doesn't really belong in the diagram because it's not part of the actual product itself. It's really a place for me to just put tables about the application. Give you some examples. One of the things I do with it is I put my ribbon code in there because I make custom ribbons for the application, and so all that ribbon code goes in that table. User preferences. I usually set up a system where people can choose to view things by default one way or another, and those will go in that table. And desktop settings also is very important because different desktops have different settings. You know, a laptop has a smaller screen. Some people have 2 monitors. There's all kinds of things that I need to track to make the application look proper. So that's application tables, along with the other 3 databases that are part of the project itself. So one of the things I got started with is making migrations. So I'm going to show you my first migration here in this video, and then for the other migrations I'm going to do it in another video because I don't like the videos to go too long. So in my files over here in the demo project, I go into artifacts and I go into migrations, and I made a migration a little earlier called create schemas. Now I'll double click on this and it'll open up in Visual Studio Code so I can read it. And basically this just looks to see if any of these schemas, like accounting schema, customer schema, production schema, and so on and so forth. And this is just a typical list of schema. This can be as long or as short as the customer wants, and I can add to them later. So for the purposes of this demo, this customer schema is all that we're going to actually use. But just to watch this migration work, we're going to go ahead and create all of these schema. So that's what it looks like in SQL Server, in Visual Studio Code, just to read it and edit it if I needed to. But I really need to open it up in SQL Server itself. So here's the SQL Server Management Studio, and I have to make sure that I'm looking at the correct database, because if I have this one selected when I get this started, if I'm not careful, I'll be running that migration against the wrong database. So I'm in my development database. I click on open. It knows where to look because I've been doing this in in testing procedures, so it remembers where I was at as far as the path goes. But otherwise, you just navigate to this path where my migrations are, and click on open. And this is what it looks like in SQL Server. So I'm just going to execute it, and it should tell me that the commands were completed successfully. So if I go back to this, and I need to look in security, schemas, and as you can see now, if I had had that open earlier, I would have had to hit refresh, but because that was my first time opening that folder, you can see here's the accounting schema, the customer schema, the inventory, operations, production, and vendor schema. Those are all the ones that I had here in this migration. All right, so that's kind of how a migration works. I'm going to be creating tables the same way in future videos. I just want to introduce that to you, and then I'll end this video here. Bring myself back up. I don't really like to make the videos go too long, so I mean, they get a little boring. You're going to need a break. So somewhere around 7 or 8 minutes, and I'm just coming up on 5.5 minutes now. So since this is one of my earlier videos, I'm going to go ahead and stop it there and pick it up in the next video. See you then. Thanks.